Okay, last episode when we left we were able to actually select a group of sprite slices and rename them, but we had yet to provide a user interface. So that's what we're going to try to start on today. This is part 4 in a 3-part series about slicing or renaming sliced sprites, coming up with a way to do that in the editor that's easier than clicking on Sprite Editor and going through these manually and doing it. So if you haven't watched the other 3 parts, I highly recommend you do it, or you may be lost. So to make an editor for this, we simply need to come and create another C# script here. And we'll call it Sprite. Let's call it Slice Renamer. I like that. Slice Renamer. And we're in the editor, so we'll call this an editor window. So we want to derive from editor window because we want an editor window. Lovely. What a lovely little thing. And we need a, we'll call it void let's call it get window. So we should say slice renamer dot get window slice renamer, and that should create us a window. So let's have our test here. Instead of doing this, let's say rename, or let's do this Sprite. Let's make an additional menu. Let's say rename. We'll copy that here as well. So instead of doing this, let's see if we can't get it to give us our I guess I shouldn't say get window, should I? Maybe I should say init. Makes it less confusing. Let's see what that gets us. So then if I click on something that makes sense, then we should have Sprite rename, and it does indeed. It's over on my other monitor, but there it is. Yay, there it is. It's fantastic. Okay, so we got our window, and then we need to start putting stuff in it. So that would be, we probably need an on GUI. So what we want is let's first display the selected sprites. How about that? So let's call this editor GUI layout dot label field, and let's say, and I'm going to use the Spring interpolation again because it's awesome. We'll say selected sprites, and then we'll just selection dot objects. Oh, actually, what we really need is the ability to we really need this. So let's just make this public. Public. So we'll say if sprite utils can rename sprites, then we'll do this. Otherwise, we will just say, yeah, there are no selected sprites. Now the other thing is the repaint window, because we're going to need to repaint this even when it's not. So let's go here and let's say repaint to window Unity 3D. Let's check. Let's see if this works. Let's just grab what he says right here. And we'll stick it into our little class here on inspector update. This will get called 10 times a second. I'm gonna say should, so I'm not sure if that's right or not. Let's go back here. Let's see if we get anything here or if we get an issue. Sprite selected 3. None. 1. 11. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? Beautiful. Lovely. There's our selected sprites. So we want something such as we will want a string, and it will be new name, and so we'd say new name equals editor GUI layout dot or not a string, what is it, text field. That's what I'm adding, text field. On that text field, let's make a new GUI content label, and we'll call it base name, like that. And the text will be new name, like so. So the stuff we're doing right now will not be undoable. You know, if you rename stuff in a file like this, we're not going to bother with undo. Whatever happens, you just gonna own it. You just gonna own it. You know what I mean? And so let's also do the following. If we can rename sprites, then let's display all of our stuff. Otherwise, let's not display all of our stuff. Get my drift? We also will need a button, so we'll do the button and we'll say if editor GUI layout dot button. It's editor GUI dot button. No, it's actually GUI layout dot button. We'll say rename slices. Then to do rename all the slices. Slices. And let's say this. Let's make sure that we actually have something in new name. If not, string dot is null or empty, the new name, and the button is pressed. Then we'll rename all the slices. Oh, this is working out pretty nicely. Let's also get this window, and we can set window dot max size equals new vector 2. Let's say, how big is it right now? That's pretty big. Let's say 200 by 300 max size. And let's just say min size is the same. Let's just see what happens here. So I'm going to get rid of that window, and we'll say rename sprites. Yeah, that's too small. That's too small. Really? That's 200? So that base name, what we should do, we can make it smaller, but we'll have to somewhat annoying. So let's do editor GUI layout dot begin horizontal, and then we'll say the same editor GUI layout dot end horizontal. And we'll, instead of doing a text field, we'll do a text field. But we won't set a label. And here we will go editor GUI layout dot label field, and then we'll say base name. And then we can say GUI layout dot width, and we'll say, I don't know, I'm guessing it's something like base name, maybe it's 100 wide. So we're going to basically pull that in and get more control over this, because that's a huge amount of space between those two things. So it should pull in some. Looks like we can probably go down another 20. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Okay, so great, fantastic. Now what happened to our button? Oh, I know, we don't have a name. Hello, there's our button. If we click it, nothing happens, of course. And we may want also we may want to actually be able to tell it where start index we want it to occur at. Correct? Yes. So we'll grab this set here and we'll say start index, and then instead of a text field we'll have an int fields, and that's going to be start index. Just creating a quick little rename tool here. Start index is 0. Okay, we really don't need it to be very large, do we? Let's try 100 by 100, because that's a very tiny amount of space we're taking up right now. Yeah, that's way better. So we selected sprites 4, and it does update. And none. Beautiful, beautiful. And if we don't have a name, it won't show that. So we're rename slices. Okay, lovely. So looks like we'll be able to get this set up like we want it, right? So now all we need is to be able to rename these particular slices. And what we'll need to do is and we could add this to our window set here, or wherever we wanted to stick it. Like I've got a pixel byte one here that I have a bunch of stuff in, but you can do that's all left up to you. For now, we'll just get to it from the right-click menu, and it'll bring up this window. And now the question becomes, how now do we tell it? So we've got this manipulate meta file, and we have this action, and here's our action. And I suppose what we can do then is we can say meta file name, and then say new name, and then we can say int starting index. Okay, so we're just going to make this thing work out like we want to. So we don't need that. Actually, we can say if string.is null or empty new name. For now, we're just going to return. That just doesn't make any sense. We should never see that. So the index is now equal to starting index. Yep. That should do it. So, let's make this an internal, just because I like internals. Internals are fun. Basically just means that you can only call this in the same assembly. We could do that here too. Now what we can do here is we can say we will need to get the asset path, won't we? Okay, that's easy enough to do, but let's say manipulate, or I'm sorry, sprite utils manipulate meta file, and the asset path, which was whoops. Let's just see if we can't cheat a little bit and grab that. That's what I want right there. Okay. So manipulate meta file. We grab the path of the first selected object because we know that they're all going to be sprites, since that's the only way we get in. That's the only way we're going to be able to click this button. So manipulate file, the path, and the action is going to be let's call it asset path. And we're just going to do this. Our action is going to be sprite utils dot and we need to rename sprites like so. So we just made it so that we can call it rename sprites, and we'll do asset path and the new name and the start index. And actually we don't even need, I don't believe we need that either. There we are. All right, let's see what happens. So if we want to, let's go down here. If we want to rename, let's go find all the books. Book. Oh, no. We don't want you or you. So let's rename these 6 to book. Start index. Let's start it at 5. Rename slices. Does it work? Did it work? I don't think it worked. Oh, you know what we didn't do? We did not. We didn't refresh the asset database, which I bet it just now did. Yep, it just did. So we need to add that to our slice renamer here. So we'll rename sprites, and then after that we'll say asset database refresh. Reference equals refresh. Refresh the asset database. So let's try another rename. This is so cool. So cool. Amulet time. Oh no, let's do some rings. Ring, ring, ring. Let's do those 6 rings. And let's say ring, and we'll say 0 and rename. And there we go. Oh, it works! There we go. All right. So that's how we can manipulate and rename big old selected chunks of of any 2D texture that's sliced up as a multi-sprite, or set up as a multi-sprite set or asset, which is great. And you see that if we select a bunch, we can get them here, but if we decide to try to select the actual texture, we can't do any rename, and we can't even click on rename itself. So that's exactly what we want. We want to make sure that we verify all that. But now we should be able to rename all this stuff. Did it work? Where's our stuff? There's the stuff. Oh, that's lovely. All right, so the only thing we don't have is an undo, and I don't think I'm going to spend time on that. That's something that if you're interested in, we can look into at some point, or you can just implement it yourself. But hey, this is some good useful stuff. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.